How's it going? Fox back again for sound design tutorials. This is another request. This one was by a chap. Perhaps I should have found it first. Anyway, it was for a hardcore lead. It's like a hardstyle lead, but a bit harder, he told me. And it's by somebody called Angerfist. I sent him a couple of examples of me trying to do it with a virus. I didn't really get close enough for him to be happy with, but I've been messing around with it since. I've done two separate layers, one with a virus, one with massive. Layered them together, bit of separate EQing, bit of compression on the group as a whole, and I think I'm pretty close. Well, happy enough for me to do a tutorial anyway, so this is what I've got. Pretty good. He only gave me one example of a track to listen to, so that's all I had to go on. I don't really know anything about the genre, if I'm honest, but it's a lot like a hardstyle lead in the way that you modulate the pitch with a fast LFO to give it that sort of screamy sound. There's some FM synthesis going on inside the Virus one, and the Massive is no different. I believe I've got some FM by the filter. Yep. So these patches are going to be free to download in the description. I'm not going to go over every aspect and remake them all because it'd take me ages. I'm just going to talk through the patches briefly, explain to you what I did. So we're going to go over the Virus one first. If I solo the Virus, it's the main part of the sound, the Virus one. So let's talk about what we're going on. It's classic waveforms. I've got a sort of a blend between a saw wave and a square and oscillator 2. I'll turn the detune off originally. It didn't make it sound any better. I've got a classic waveform again on oscillator A. This one is a bog standard sawtooth. Both the semitones are exactly the same. The main part for this sound comes from the modulation with the LFO. I'll talk about the sync options we've got going on as well and the difference they have. Oscillator 3 was a pulse wave. This one was an octave down. The volume is down a little bit, so the pulse isn't making that much difference. If I turn the pulse out and then bring it in, it was just helping add a little bit more zing and mixing with the FM sort of stuff that we've got going on. The noise generator I've got on, you can definitely hear some noise in the background. This is being controlled by an envelope in the matrix section. I've got envelope 3 in the matrix section pushing the noise volume up. If we have a quick look at envelope 3, it's very, very snappy. It's just increasing the volume of the noise from its original position, which is around about 53. It's just boosting it slightly at the start of the sounds, giving it a bit of a percussive sort of hit. You can hear that. It's a really, really light clicking sort of sound. That's coming from that modulation on the noise envelope. I've got the noise colour quite bright on plus 38, and I've got a punch intensity almost all the way around to 92. Again, that's helping just give it a bit of a staccato sort of plucky sort of sound. The amp envelope's wide open, no pluck being created at all by the envelope there. Tiny bit of release just to stop any clicking. Nothing crazy going on there. Saturation that I've used in the filter section we'll talk about later on. So the FM, this plays a big part of this sound. The noise source is paramount, so we'll turn the FM off. Noise source as an FM using noise as an FM source is awesome. It really, really helps grit everything up. You don't need to really worry about the sweet spots with the FM like you do if you're using a triangle or the positive triangle or wave or anything like that, because it's a noise source. You can just, this is like the gain, if you like. around about 35, in between 30 and 35, just help give it that sort of screamy edge. I've got a tiny bit of envelope on the FM, same reason again, just flicking the FM round a little bit more than it is when it starts. I'm using the filter envelope for this, virtually the same as envelope 3, no different really. Just again, real quick flick of a little bit more FM synthesis at the start of the notes. So twin unison, slight bit of detune. I'll turn the pan and the LFO phase set off so you can hear what this does. This really helps widen the sound. So as we pan it. There you go. Pan's only going to work if you use the detune to start spreading them apart. Does make a big difference in my eyes. I've got a sub oscillator. We'll pull that out again, just show you what that does. That's introducing a square wave. Virtually the oscillator section done. I didn't use any ring modulation. Saturation is +2, a tiny little bit of saturation. The sync is quite important. I'm going to turn the sync off. So it really was quite static without the sync on. So when you sync on, it syncs oscillator 1 to 2, as it shows you here, 1, 2, 2. And then we give it a bit of envelope. So again, we're going to flick the filter envelope in. Again, play with the taste. I had it about 35%, I believe. All these little things make a hell of a difference. It took me ages to get this sound how I wanted it, and then I still needed another layer to sort of help beef it all up. What you're doing there with that env to oscillator 2, you're changing the pitch of oscillator 2 very rapidly. When in sync mode, it gives it that syncy sort of twang. If I stretch the envelope out, you're going to hear the difference. Really plucky envelope on the filter of around about 12, just to really whip it round and then pull it back out again. So that's the oscillator section done. So it's not straightforward by a long shot, so it did take me a long time to get this. So we're going to go to the filter section now. It's in series 4 mode. It's the one as it comes as standard. It's a 4-pole filter, I do believe. 4-pole? 6-pole? Can't remember now. It's the lesser slope of the filter anyway. Oh, 2-pole filter into saturation and 2-pole. Saturation is rectifier. I say running on +2, so it's not making a hell of a difference, but again, it's what I chose. Nothing crazy with the filters. I've got no filter envelope doing anything on the filters. The balance is dead center. Taming a little bit of the highs and the real harshness of the noise with the low pass filter on filter 1. So this is where the sound really comes into play. I'm going to pull these down. Right. Link oscillator 1 and 2 together. So what it sounds like without the LFO. This is the main part for making these sort of hardcore hardstyle leads. You want a really fast LFO modulating the pitch, so it gives it that really fast tremolo sort of effect. The trigger phase, when you push this to the right, it means every time a new note is pressed, the LFO starts a new cycle, so it gives it a nice constant feel. It's synced to a clock, but it's 1/64, so it's as fast as it can go. And then yeah, just dial it in right. You want the pitch of oscillator 1 and 2 being modulated at the same time. You can go as extreme as you want. So you make these screech sounds that they have. Sort of modulating that with an envelope and then increasing the speed of the LFO later on, but that's a tutorial on its own. Plus 30% is where I had it. I do believe this envelope didn't do, this LFO didn't do anything else. No. So again, real straightforward. It's got to be a triangle wave. Square wave's too harsh. Filter if you can't hear it as much. Sine wave you might get away with, but it's got to be a triangle. That's pretty much it done. Say in the matrix section, I've got noise volume being flicked in by that plucky envelope, which I told you about. A lot of effects going on now. So analog boost. All I did was tune the character quite low. And about 30. Rectify distortion again. This does dull the sound down a bit. This is something I introduced after I created the massive patch, because the virus, I toned it down with an EQ a bit as well, and it's taking care of the more duller part of the sound, if that makes sense. And the drive I got 50% and treble boost at 30%. Go too high, it's too much. 40%, 45%. Phaser. Phaser isn't really doing that much. It's on a 4-pole filter. Feedback very, very low. Spread quite wide. No rating, no depth. You don't want any LFO moving the cutoff around. It's sort of just creating one notch around about that area. So it's just carving out a notch around about 26 on a frequency. It's just a 4-pole filter, so there will be 4. I don't know whether it's 1 notch or 2 notches in this. I can't remember when I read the manual. But yeah, either way, I've just sort of carving a little notch out with this phaser. No modulation, no rate, and no depth. EQ, very simple, just boosting the gain on the mids and the frequency on the highs. No, just boosting a tiny little bit of the mids. Effects 2. Delay. You can hear that. You can hear the delay. I'll let the MIDI notes run out. You can hear the delay. I'll turn the reverb off. Very, very quick delay. 1/32, 1/16. It's not very, very audible. A little bit of feedback. Center frequency on the filter I had at 83. Bandwidth pretty middling. Tiny bit of modulation, just a tiny little bit of wobble. And the reverb is a massive. Large room, big decay, 51%. Bright reverb, pre-delay of 98 seconds. I didn't sync it to the clock. Reverb really makes it as well. It helps mingle with all the other effects and the distortion. Very, very screechy. So then I bounced it to audio, and I got this. What I did on the audio channel, again, I've just carved a little notch out about 1200 hertz, and I've compressed it ever so slightly. This must have been giving some resonant sort of sound that I didn't want. Not really, maybe it was making room for something inside massive. Very subtle when you do quite a steep notch like that, but hey ho. So we're going to go to the massive one now. This one's not as involved. Same sort of thing again. I've got a square wave, a square wave. I've got a saw wave, a square wave, and a saw wave. These 3 little 5s here you can see are the LFO. I've got a triangle again, very, very fast rate as you can see, unsynced, modulating the pitch. All modulating the pitch between 1/3 of a semitone and half a semitone. You don't really want to go any higher than that. The crossfades up, so it's only a triangle wave. If I am going a bit quick, maybe if people ask me, I will do a lot slower tutorials for each of these sounds. 2 filters, each of them going into both filters. Some of them leaning ever so slightly more towards filter 2. I've got a screen filter and a low pass filter. Screen filter does exactly what it says when you boost the screen around and give it a bit of resonance. I've got a bit of modulation on the low pass filter 2, low pass 2 filter on filter 1. Just got an envelope taking a tiny bit of time to open up. Nothing drastic, bit of release. I've got filter FM on the modulation oscillator pitched up almost an octave. Not really doing anything. So sometimes you don't need it. I've got feedback of filter 1 and a gain of between 10 o'clock. I've got some white noise source, which you can definitely hear. Quite a bright white noise source. Effects. I've got reverb again, which you would have every time you make this. They've definitely got reverb on. The standard reverb, not the small reverb. Dry wet, size 12 o'clock. Again, quite a bright reverb. In the routing, have I got any modulation on the unison? No. Try it. Definitely needed that. So I've just given it a tiny bit of unison, spread the voices ever so slightly, around about an eighth of a semitone. Panned them. This part was taking care of the higher aspect of the sound, the more wider part, so surprised I didn't do that. In the oscillator section as well, I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm restarting the oscillator phases via a gate. I'll show you what this does differently. This was giving oscillator to a real snarl around about 180 degrees. Same again with oscillator 1, dead center, it sounds quite flat. It's quite hard to explain what that does. It's the starting position of the phase of these waveforms. Because oscillator 1 and 2 are quite similar in regards to it's a square wave and a saw wave, but obviously this one is blended between a saw and a square. If you alternate the starting point of the waveforms when they're on the same octave, it helps fill up more of the spectrum, because rather than just following the same wave shape together, the same pattern, they're sort of smudged apart because of the phase. I'm not explaining that very well, but hey ho. In the routing, I've got insert 1 coming after filter 1. Insert 2 is not even doing anything, so I might as well turn that off. So insert 1 coming after filter 1. It's a sine shaper, this is distortion. I'll turn it on and off. Quite a drastic effect that's having when it's mixing with the resonance of the filter 2. Turn everything off actually. We'll introduce it bit by bit. It's just oscillator 1 in the noise source, then oscillator 2, because it's got a different phasing point. Oscillator 3. This one's being modulated a bit more by the LFO. You can really hear that. You can hear it sounding a bit more chiptune. They're in serial mode, the filters, by the way, so the signal goes into filter 1 and filter 2, although we are sending a bit of signal to both. Screen filter's already on. Turn the reverb on. Sine shaper. EQ. Boosting the high shelf just to help accentuate that noise source. Yeah, that's the massive one. Quite involved again. It didn't take me nowhere near as long as what it did with the Virus, because I know my way around Massive a lot better. I've been using it a lot longer. So the EQing on Massive, I'm just boosting the frequencies around about 800 Hz, cutting the real highs out and the low lows. On the group as a whole, I've got a mastering preset from the glue compressor. Mastering catching peaks. All I've done is just increase the makeup gain when I unsolo this. So this is the Virus one. Quite dull because, as I say, I've toned a lot with the EQ inside the Virus. Massive together. There you go. Sorry that was a bit long-winded. I'll put the bloke's name who requested this in the description. Sorry that I forgot him. But yeah, that is a hardcore lead. We're using the Virus and Massive laid together. Yeah, thanks for watching as always. Make sure you subscribe and you can grab these patches in the description. Cheers, thanks for watching.